At the end of this topic, you will be able to define evolution, explain how new species are formed naturally, list out the hierarchy of human evolution from hominids to modern Homo sapiens, illustrate the diversity of organisms with evolutionary tree, brief the use and disuse theory of Lamarck, compile the voyage and the researches of Charles Darwin. Evolution is a gradual process in which something changes into a different and more complex form from the pre-existing simpler forms. It is rather a slow process which would take millions and millions of years. Generally, evolution is studied or presumed by fossil evidences. Evolution brings out diversity in organism. It is basically influenced by environmental selection. Speciation is formation of new species from a subpopulation of a species which is geographically or reproductively isolated over a long period of time. When two populations or species are isolated by geographical, anatomical, physiological or reproductive barriers for a long time, there is a chance for them to have a change in their gene flow. Gene flow ultimately leads to speciation. Gene flow in a community or population may bring out the genetic drift. Genetic drift along with gene flow imposed by isolation mechanism is a good cause and agent for speciation. Hairy-bodied gorilla and chimpanzees like hominids existed in Africa some 15 million years ago. Around 3 to 4 million years ago, men like hominids walked into eastern Africa. Fossil evidences say that hominids used stones for hunting and were mostly eating fruits. They were short with a height of not more than 4 feet, but walked upright in the grasslands of East Africa, looked men-like and called as Homo habilis. There was a long gap between in human evolution or lack of adequate fossil evidences as the next stage of human evolution came to exist 1.5 million years ago, and they were called as Homo erectus, who were meat eaters. 1 million years ago, the Neanderthal man lived in East and Central Asia. They protected themselves by hiding and buried their dead companions. Archaic Homo sapiens arose in South Africa and moved across continents. They developed a distinct race during the Ice Age. The modern Homo sapiens arose between 75,000 to 10,000 years ago. This was evident by the prehistoric cave which was developed about 18,000 years ago. Around 10,000 years back, agriculture came to practice where human settlements started. Evolutionary tree is used to understand the evolution, variation and relationship between various species and other entities. Its branched diagrams typically looks like trees. This is drawn based on the similarities and differences in physical and genetic characters of biological species. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck lived between 1744 to 1829, postulated the use and disuse theory. According to Lamarck, the organ which was in use frequently for generations over a long period develops well in the subsequent generations, and the less used or disused organ or parts of a body diminishes or degenerates in the subsequent generations. Lamarck cited the development of long neck of giraffe as an example for use and disuse theory. Initially, giraffes had a short neck, but they were forced to stretch their neck and leg to reach the leaves of tall trees. This action was continuing over a period of time which resulted in long neck and legs in giraffe. Lamarck quoted that will or want for a character makes the organisms to grab it at a later time. Charles Darwin, the father of evolution, set out on a voyage when he was just 22 years old. He was sailing for 5 years and visited South America and the Galapagos Islands. After this voyage, he had never visited any shores but stayed in his home country, England, and conducted various researches pertaining to evolution. After the elaborate research he formulated, the hypothesis that natural selection is the root cause for evolution. Unfortunately, he did not have an idea or knowledge about the mechanism of variation seen in the species. Had he been highlighted the ideas of Mendel and his experiments on variation and genetics, he would have contributed more to the evolutionary thesis. Darwin was not only an evolutionary biologist but an accomplished naturalist and conducted notable research on earthworms' role in soil fertility. In this topic, you have learnt evolution is a slow, gradual process in which something changes into complex form from the pre-existing simpler forms. Evolution brings diversity in organisms. Formation of new species from a subpopulation of a species is called speciation. A barrier existing for a long time brings out gene flow, genetic drift, and speciation. Human evolution started from hairy-bodied gorilla and chimpanzees like hominids 15 million years ago, to men like hominids 3 to 4 million years ago, to Homo habilis to Homo erectus 1.5 million years ago, to the Neanderthal man 1 million years ago, to archaic Homo sapiens to the modern Homo sapiens 75,000 to 10,000 years ago. Humans settled around 10,000 years back when agriculture came to practice. Evolutionary tree is drawn used to understand the evolution, variation and relationship between various species and other entities. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck lived between 1744 to 1829 and postulated the use and disuse theory, quoting the example of the giraffe's neck. Charles Darwin, the father of evolution, set out on a voyage to South America and the Galapagos Islands and spent 5 years, came back to England, researched extensively and formulated the theory of natural selection.